Welcome to Etsy Success Strategies, the audio series, where you get to listen to and learn everything you need to know about selling on Etsy, one audio recording at a time. This episode is titled Craft Supply Sellers, Track Your Inventory and Shipping Processes Like a Pro, and this is recording number 157. This episode is also a sneak peek of what you'll get when you subscribe to the new premium service I'm offering. And if you'd like to know when it goes live, please visit convome.com/read to me and complete the form there to get on the early notification list. This episode is for sellers of craft supplies. And as a seller of craft supplies myself, I know firsthand that having a good system of organization for both your inventory and shipping will help you have a quicker turnaround time and lower costs. And that's always a good thing for your customers.
Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
So first, you want to put systems in place to keep your inventory organized. Start by organizing things first, both your inventory and your shipping supplies, in a way that will make it easy for you to find them when you get an order. Etsy's recommendation is that you use SKUs, which stands for, that's SKU, and that stands for Stock Keeping Units. And Etsy recommends that you use these to track your inventory. SKUs can be letters, they can be numbers, or a combination of the two. And depending on how you use them, you should be able to immediately identify your products based on the assigned SKU. The bottom line is that your SKU system should work for you. I'll tell you what mine is, and hopefully that will help you think about how you want to organize yours. So, like I said, I sell craft supplies and I sell a lot of crafting patterns. So first, I arrange them by craft. So sewing patterns are SP, quilting patterns are QP, knitting patterns are KP, etc. Then next, I arrange them in plastic bins by craft and then number the bins. So if I end up with 3 bins of sewing patterns and 4 bins of quilting patterns and 2 of knitting patterns, I'll number the sewing pattern bins SP1, SP2, and SP3. Then the quilting pattern bins will be QP1, QP2, QP3, and QP4. And then finally, my knitting pattern bins will be KP1 and KP2. Now, within each bin, I will arrange my sewing pattern first in alphabetical order. So all the advanced patterns will be first, and within the advanced patterns, I'll arrange them in numerical order since sewing patterns have number IDs. Then next will be my Butterick patterns, then McCall's, Simplicity, Vogue, etc. And then I will arrange my other patterns similarly. And if they don't have a numeric ordering system, then I arrange them just alphabetically. So now, when I create a listing, I'll grab a bin and I'll work my way through it. And in the body of the listing, at the end of my listing description, I'll add the SKU for that item so that when it sells, I immediately go to the listing description to figure out where I have that item stored. Now, apparently, Etsy has incorporated a space for SKUs in the listings, so you may not have to put that the SKU directly in the listing description. I haven't yet played around with their SKU system, so I don't yet know. I'm going to try it and see how it works. Right now, what I'm using works for me, but again, I'll try the SKU system and see. Now, if and when possible, give your customers more choices. So, once you have your inventory organized, you can take advantage of Etsy's variations options and offer your customers even more choices. So, how do you do this? All right, so once all your inventory is organized and you determine that you have variations of certain items, then you can use this feature. And I'll use myself as an example. So if I have a particular sewing pattern for a dress, and say it's Simplicity 2934, and it comes in sizes A, B, and C, and each one one each for like a small size, medium, and large sizes. I will arrange them the way I described to you earlier. But then when I create a listing for this item, I'll use the variations option to list each of these sizes separately so that a buyer knows that it's not one size fits all, and then they can choose the size that they want to buy when they're ready to make a purchase. And then once that is gone, say I only have one of size A, that goes away. My listing still stays, but then the options that now become available are B, that remain available, I should say, are B and C, and then A is gone. Unless I have multiples of each size, and then Etsy will just decrement the quantity based on sales. This is also a good opportunity to expand your product offerings. So if you take a look at Etsy Studio, you can see which supply categories are less crowded, and then you might want to choose to start filling those gaps if you can source supplies in those categories. Now, at the time of this recording, according to Etsy, the paper and writing supplies categories have less inventory than some others, and filling these categories could be a good opportunity for you to expand your business. So if you have a source for paper and writing supplies and you're listening to this and you have the bandwidth to expand, or you want to expand, then play around in that section and see, play with the search tool and see what people are looking for in those categories of supplies, and see whether or not you can fill that. Then lastly, you want to keep your packaging uniform, and you want to do that so that you can keep your shipping prices in check. When people are shopping, they do take the cost of shipping into account when they're making their buying decisions. So if you ship smaller items, it's best to use small, light packaging. If you're in the US, consider using USPS priority mail when possible, because you'll save on the cost of envelopes. The post office gives them to you for free. And then pricing will be consistent, especially if you use the flat rate option. Also, you should consider buying your shipping and packaging supplies in bulk. I use Uline for all of mine right now. You get way better prices than if you buy them at retail from brick and mortar stores. Unless, of course, you catch an going out of business sale or something crazy like that. And then also, when you shop somewhere like Uline, they're more consistent with having items in stock than, say, sourcing your supplies on Craigslist or Nextdoor, which you can get really good deals and you can find things on there, but and I've done that back in my more bootstrappy days, but it's not consistent. And if you're constantly making sales, you want to make sure you always have supplies for shipping. If you're in the US or Canada, you'll save even more money by using the Etsy shipping label option over regular retail postal rates. I'm not sure how they work it out or what the incentive is to Etsy, but it is cheaper to use Etsy shipping labels. Now, if you like what you heard in this episode and you think you could benefit from having this type of detailed educational tutorials about ways to make your Etsy selling experience better and more profitable, then please consider getting on the early notification list for Etsy Success Strategies, the audio series, once it launches. Go to convome.com/read to me to sign up. And the episodes will be typically more like this one, concise, gives you the information, and you can immediately turn around and go and do something with it. So now please go and log into your Etsy shop and do something constructive with what you've just learned. And if you still have questions, please leave them in the comments section below this episode, and I'll do my best to answer them. Lastly, if you've found this helpful, could you please help me spread the word about this resource to other current or aspiring Etsy sellers? And I will be back next week.
thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.